Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here. Welcome back to a new video on the channel. Today guys, the 3-game match reviews have returned for 2023. Same thing as last year, 3 games in a match review, just makes things pretty simple. And I might consider doing a round review as well. But anyway, 3 games we're going to be reviewing. The first 2 games of the year, Richmond VS Carlton, Geelong VS Collingwood, North Melbourne vs West Coast, so Richmond, Carlton, Geelong, Collingwood, and North Melbourne vs West Coast. Let's go ahead right into things. So the first game of the year was Richmond and Carlton, the traditional season opener at the MCG, this year opting for no grand final rematch. So this was an absolute cracking game. Low scoring at the MCG, 8-10-58 Richmond to 8-10-58 Carlton. A draw to start the year. It's unbelievable stuff, to be completely honest. Absolutely unbelievable. A draw to start the 2023 AFL season. Absolutely insane. It was a low-scoring, really scrappy contest for most of the night. But these two sides really did show, especially Carlton. I feel like Carlton really did show the most out of this game. And they probably actually did deserve to win, Carlton, as you can see here on the timeline. That Carlton led for the majority of the game. I feel like they had some really good moments. Lockie Cowan actually looked really good, and so did Hollands. I'm pretty sure Cowan ended up being substituted off, but I feel like Hollands looked really good. For the Tigers, I reckon Taranto looked really good as well. Tom Lynch, he looked in good form. Curnow and Mackay as well are going to be some spearheads this year. We know they've both got a Coleman medal. Could one of them potentially go again? Maybe. It was a scrappy first quarter. Well, a very scrappy first half, actually, to be completely honest, and a scrappy last quarter. It was the third quarter where the scoring did end up getting away. The Tigers ended up kicking 5 goals to Carlton's 2, but it was a much more high-scoring quarter where the Richmond comeback started. Richmond only had 16 to half-time, which was definitely disappointing, especially for where Richmond have been seen to be at this year. A top 4 side, 16 in the first half of a game, I don't really think is going to cut it for them. Right, we'll have a little look at some of the match leaders. Taranto was really good with 32 disposals, 123 fantasy. Toby Nankervis, the big man, laying 11 tackles. And Tom Lynch and Charlie Curnow, both with 3 goals. They're going to be some big players to watch, including that drawing goal which Tom Lynch kicked. So AFL fantasy now. And look, I reckon Taranto and Nankervis had some really good games. Doherty, including that big torpedo, had a really good game. Rioli has just looked at home on that half-back line for the Tigers, so I really think he has made a home for himself. Hewitt, Wiedering, and McGovern. Now, I'm going to take a moment to talk about McGovern. Throughout the trade period, throughout the off-season, throughout the first couple of weeks of this year, he has been talked about a lot, has Mitch McGovern, and he's been talked about that he may not be fit enough for AFL level, may not be built or suited for AFL level. Haven't seen him in a long time. This was his he responded really well. This was a big game for him, 93 fantasy. Goals behinds, we know Lynch, Curnow, 3 goals each. Maurice Rioli, the only other multiple goal scorer, with 2 of his own. Taranto and Hewitt both got around the ball. 32 for Taranto, 28 for Hewitt, 27 for Rioli, 25 for Cripps and Doherty. Now we're going to go to tackles next. 11 for Nankervis, 9 for Graham, 8 for Taranto. Hit-outs, 37 for Nankervis, 24 for De Koning, playing as Carlton's main ruck. They opted to leave out Pitnet. 5 for Miller, 2 for Silvani, 1 for Lynch and Revolts. So now I'm going to go to the team stats. And not really, definitely though, the inside 50, 66 to 45. That is the big stat that Richmond won on the night, was 66 to 45 inside 50s. Going inside 50 21 more times than Carlton. However, their inside 50 efficiency, obviously not as good. 38%, it's Carlton's 47%, but 45 inside 50s could be a little bit of a concern there for the Blues, especially how they got beaten by that much by a team they really should have gone inside 50 a similar amount of times too. So that could be a bit of an alarming stat, especially when they had 6 more free kicks as well. Hit-outs are in favour of Richmond, so were clearances, but centre clearances were where Carlton won. Stoppage was where Richmond won. Nothing else that's really catching my eye at the moment. 11 to 5 marks inside 50 though. That is a big stat there. I talked about that a lot last year. It's so much easier taking a mark inside 50, going back with a set shot, rather than trying to scrap and get the ball off the ground. Carlton did lead for most of the game. However, they just couldn't quite get the job done in the end. But this was an absolute thriller. Some would say Carlton choked. I just would call that an absolute belter of a game. Geelong's 16-game winning streak is over. They had a chance to make it 17 on a Friday night game versus the Pies, but could not in a high-scoring shootout. You go from 58-58 to Geelong 16-7, 103, Collingwood 19-11, 125. One night after, at the same venue. Absolutely insane stuff. This was an absolute cracking game. This was an absolutely amazing game. Now, Geelong's 16-game winning streak, that is it. They're going to have to try and build one back up again. However, I do feel like after this, though, they do show a little bit of vulnerabilities, perhaps. I just feel like that last quarter, are they actually going to be, this year, too old and too slow? Oh, that's my big question. In this last quarter, it just looked like there was a bit of wear and tear around Geelong in that last quarter. I feel like they played really well every other term, except for that last term. Goalless in that last term, just 4 behinds for the Cats. You do say, though, 4 goals could have flipped it around, but again, though, you do ask yourself some questions. Really high-scoring first quarter, 36-33. Absolute cracking game in the first quarter. I feel like the Cats did have the better, but the Pies, just their ability to respond every time the Cats got out to a lead. They did that on so many occasions. In the first, second, and third quarter, when the Cats just look like they're getting out to a 20, 25-point lead, they go, right, we're going to kick the next 3-4 goals. We're going to respond back. And that was really good, because if Collingwood hadn't have done that, that could have easily allowed the Cats to start building that lead up to 50. So I do like that from Collingwood, their ability to come back. And then in the last quarter, they managed to finish it off really nicely, kicking tons of goals. So the Cats, they just looked like they were just on fire and capitalised on some excitement and some fast footy in that last quarter. Dacos 35 disposals, Degoe 3, Pendlebury 18, 118 fantasy, Scott Pendlebury 8 tackles, Degoe, Hill, kicked 3 goals each as well, so they had pretty nice nights. Pendlebury, Dacos, Degoe, Noble, Smith, Dacos, Josh Dacos, and Nick Dacos both in around some of the higher fantasy numbers. Goals behind, 3 for Hill and Degoe, 2 for Hawkins, Cameron, Myercheck, McGuinness, Rowan, Stengel, Tui, Henry, Mitchell, Cox, McCreary. They were all in for multiple goals. Dacos 35 disposals, Noble 29. He was impressive, Noble. Pendlebury 27, Dacos 27. That's Josh Dacos. Degoe 25. Tackles 8 for Pendlebury, 5 for Blitzarves. Hit-outs 29 for Stanley and Cameron. 16 for Cox. 5 for Blitzarves. 4 for Tommy Hawkins. So now there's some team stats. And Collingwood going inside 50, 46-62. So that's definitely a big win there for the Pies. That's 16 more times than Geelong. You'd be feeling like the reigning premiers would be going in more times than just 46, and especially a high-scoring shootout. You'd be thinking. Again, efficiency inside 50 for both sides was high. Stoppage clearances, 18-28 in favour of the Pies. They were getting the ball out of the stoppage a lot more. However, the Cats, we do know their burst out of the middle, such a prolific part of their game. Mark, 69-105, so the Pies getting a bit more control over their game. Not much more was interesting, I don't think. Cats did lead for most of the game, but what I said before, though, is I liked how the Pies managed. Every time the Cats looked like they were going to get out, I just loved how the Pies managed to respond. That's what a good side does. Even if the other side gets out to a lead, really good sides manage to peg it back and overturn in the end. An absolute thriller to start off Saturday games at Marvel Stadium. North Melbourne 12-15, 87 to West Coast 12-10, 82. North Melbourne get off to the perfect winning start under the Clarko era. And I feel like in this game, North Melbourne, especially in quarters 2 and 3, and even in the first quarter, they just did everything right. They looked like they had a new game plan. Their handballs were really slick and smooth. They looked like they were working things out really well. And I was impressed with Sheasel. And Nick Larkey as well, for that matter. I feel like those two had really good games. A couple of other players popped up for some good moments. Luke McDonald was another one that I was really impressed with, as well as Luke Davies-Uniacke. So, it was a pretty interesting first quarter. As I said, pretty interesting first quarter between North and the Eagles. The Eagles did have the jump skip. They were pretty quiet for the first 5 minutes, but after that, they pretty much owned the quarter until the end, where North Melbourne made a bit of a comeback, kicking a couple goals. Then in the second quarter, 1 goal for West Coast, 3 for North. They just started to build out a lead. It was quite a boring quarter, but North Melbourne did seem to do everything right in that quarter. So if you were a North Melbourne fan, that quarter would have been absolutely amazing, just showing what they've got. They didn't score a lot, but they had a chance to show what their game plan was like. And then the third quarter, North did get going out well. They got out to about a 35 point lead. And then West Coast kick 1, 2, 3 goals, really important goals as well, to show they mean business at 3/4 time. And in the last quarter, North Melbourne led for the entire thing, but West Coast at times got really close. But in the end, it was lots of behinds in that last quarter, but it was a quarter where North Melbourne ran away with the game. Harry Sheasel, 34 disposals, was electric off the half-back line in debut. Nick Larkey, 6 goals. He had some really good games last year. And this man could be, if he can actually have games, like he can try and kick 2-3 goals at least every game, with a couple of bags of 6 and 7 in there, which we know he's truly capable of. Is he a chance for the Coleman medal? I reckon he'll win a Coleman medal one day, Nick Larkey. The future's really bright for this man. I feel like even in a undermanned, underperformed side in the past couple of years, he's just done everything right, Nick Larkey. Harry Sheasel, Luke Shuey, 118 fantasy each, Ruben Gibney, 12 tackles. Good debut for him. So AFL fantasy, as I said, 118 for Sheasel, Shuey, we know that. 109 for Zeeble, 108 for Davies Uniac, 95 for Ryan. 92 for Gibney on debut as well. Things are looking good for him. 88 for McDonald, that man I was talking about before. 6 goals for Larkey, 3 for Ryan, 2 for Allen. That's great to see, Oscar Allen. I feel like he's in for a decent year. 2 goals is important for him. Paul Curtis, Cam Zerha, Jermaine Jones, others kicking 2 goals. Harry Sheasel, 34 disposals, 32 for Davies Uniac, 27 for Shuey, 26 for Zeeble, 25 for Simpkin, Hearn and Sheed, 24 for Power. He looked decent at times, and McDonald had 22. Now to tackles we go. 12 for Gibney, the highest on the ground. Kane Turner, 9 and 8 for Shuey. Hit outs now, 37 for Williams, 12 for Comben, 11 for Greenwood, 10 for Jamieson. They had to really work their way around North Melbourne, especially with Comben and Greenwood doing the ruck, because Tristan Xerri, he got 9 hit outs and looked like he was dominating at the start of the game. But unfortunately enough for him, going down with an injury early was not good for him. 2 hit outs for Jack Darling as well. Stats were pretty even. Inside 50s were really even. North Melbourne plus 30 handballs, though, showing what they're trying to do really well. Hit outs 32 to 49, but we know Tristan Xerri was not there. Clearances, though, still managing to win the clearances, 41 to 26. Stoppage 31 to 14 for North. That's a big win for them. That is a massive win for them. Not much more, though. Not much more looking interesting. North Melbourne led for most of the game. And I reckon they deserve to win as well. I feel like it's, they definitely deserve to win just because of how well they started and that lead they got out to. So we've had thrillers all around the park so far. The first 3 games have been absolute rippers. And my question is this one going to be another one? Port Adelaide versus Brisbane, 39 to 51. Brisbane up by 12. Port Adelaide 5-9 at the moment. Just have not made the most of their chance at the moment. I feel like Port Adelaide, they have to go back. They have to convert a bit more. And Brisbane, as I say, the good sides do punish you, and Port Adelaide have made a couple of mistakes, and it really has cost them. That was a big 6-goal turn for Brisbane that second quarter, and I feel like if they have another explosive one in the third quarter, it could just about be game over at 3/4 time. So other games still to come, a big Saturday night of footy, Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs and Gold Coast and Sydney, 2 massive games, I reckon. And if both the Dogs and the Suns can cause big upsets, that's going to be really interesting. So then the Giants and the Crows, really big game for Adelaide, who could be potentially in finals contention. I feel like that is stepping over the line a little bit, but I do feel like these 2 sides have big points to prove in this game tomorrow. And same with Hawthorn and Essendon, I feel like they've got big points to prove as well. And the Saints, can an undermanned outfit get over a decent Fremantle side? Well, that question will be answered on Sunday afternoon as well. But at the moment, we have had 3 absolute thrillers to start off the year. And yeah, I'm excited to see what the rest of round 1 and what the rest of this year brings. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so then you guys never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much. It's a bright run, Flaming Footy out.